All right, so we are going to show you how to make a Zentangle today. This is, Zentangle is actually a brand of artwork that someone has copyrighted and used for a book. There's a whole series of books, Zentangling in letters, Zentangling. This is just the basics one that we're going to start with. This is good for our age level. If you want to get more complicated, there's a whole lot going on with Zentangles out there. And it's a kind of a big movement, or it was a big movement. I think it still is. But anyway, you can see on the cover here, there are some examples of different Zentangles. Now, in art, we call these patterns. Okay, this is one of our principles of design. But someone decided to rebrand it Zentangles, and the Zen part, it's supposed to be kind of a peaceful, kind of centering activity that helps you focus on something and brings you some kind of almost therapy as you do it. Okay, so let's open the book here. It says you'll need a pencil and a black permanent marker. We will practice with the pencil, and then later on when we start doing the project part of it, we'll do a Sharpie would be good, but you need a really thin point Sharpie. Okay, see the tip on this is very thin. I have pens that we will use. You can use a ballpoint pen for this. You can use a favorite color pen. There's really no wrong materials to use for this, just like with any kind of drawing. All right, so and then it also says you'll need a sheet of paper, which we have here. I've given you a 6x6 sheet of paper, so we may be able to make multiple designs in here or one big one, so we'll figure out what we're going to do with that. You see also in the book there's an example here. So what she did, and I think one of these ladies is the ladies that invented this book or wrote this book, but what she did here is she drew, what is that? A bird, right? And then inside the lines, this simple drawing, just kind of a U shape with the wing, this kind of there, and a foot, and then some design, some separations in the back. But what she did was in each section of the bird, she put a different pattern, which made it look more interesting. It's not just coloring, it's not just shading. Okay, it's patterns inside these shapes that she created with that. So let's learn how to create our first Zentangle. All right, so I'm going to work along with the book. I'm going to kind of move my paper back and forth here. So I'll start here, and what I'm going to do with mine, and you can do this however you want. There's no wrong way to do this as long as you're kind of following the directions. So I'm actually not going to use the whole paper. I'm going to divide my paper into 4 squares. So I'm going to draw a line here. I'm going to draw a line here. So if you want to fold it, you can fold it. I'm not big on folding my paper because I like it to stay flat. But if you want to do this, if you want to just do half and half, if you want to divide into 3 sections, that's fine. But you need to have some kind of sections because the 6x6 paper I gave you is quite large. Okay, so I'll give you just a second to do that. Okay, and you can see my squares aren't perfect. They're not even. I'll move it out here. They're not quite perfect. This one has a little funky line here. That's not important to have it all perfect for this. So, first step, it says we need to use a pencil to make a dot in each corner. Okay, so I'm going to make my dots on this first square. Okay, step 2, connect the dots. Again, no ruler required. Just connect them. If your line is all wavy like this one, or you go way out here, not a big deal. Okay, that's the beauty of Zentangles. If you make a mistake, just use it to make your artwork more interesting. All right, so now step 3 says draw a string, and they put quotes around the word string as a guideline. Try a zigzag, a loop, an X, or a swirl. So they give me 3 examples here: zigzag, loop, X. The zigzag is the one in there. So if you want to do the zigzag, that's what I'm going to do. If you want to try a loop, you can do a loop. Basically, all we're doing with this part here is we are breaking this section up into 4 different sections or 3 different sections or however many, so we can put a different pattern inside each part of the square. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections to make different patterns or zentangles inside. Alright, so says step number 4. Switch to a pen and draw tangle patterns in the sections formed by the string. And again, our string can be this loop. She made a loop. And you see how her loop goes outside here and outside there? Maybe that was a mistake. But guess what? Now you have another small, tiny section to make a new pattern. Okay, so there really are no wrong ways to do this. That's the nice thing about Zentangles, is you can make mistakes and not worry about it. All right, so what is a tangle or a pattern? All right, well, it gets into some different patterns in this. This section says tangles right here, and I will have copies of different patterns laid out for you once the project starts on your tables, but we're just going through this first few together so you get an idea of how to do this. So I'm going to put my paper here and follow these directions. So it says crescent moon is the name of this pattern. Every pattern has a different name. They brand them. So this pattern is called crescent moon. Number 1, draw curved humps along the inside edges of any section. So you see these curved humps here. So how that looks is, I'm going to start in this section here. So I would start at one corner and draw my curved humps like this, just all along the edge. And again, if you make a mistake, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, you can see my corner here is not quite perfect. In this corner, they're kind of touching. This corner, this hump's kind of small and tiny. Not that big a deal if anything is off. Okay. So again, working with me, trying these process. So if you are not caught up to me yet, I'll give you about 30 seconds to catch up to me now. Try to follow along with me for the first one. Connect the dots, and then do the C string. Okay, so now that I've walked around and kind of checked on everybody to see what it is that you have, we're going to move to step 2. Now, whenever you have a Zentangle pattern like this, the ones I give you, there's going to be a step-by-step, and each step you're going to see a new addition. So this one, and yours will be black and white, not red and black like this, but this one, the first step is to create the outside pattern, the curves. So the next step is to do a second curve over each curve. It says draw a curved line on each hump to create arches or moon shapes. So my next step, each one of these is going to get another hump added onto it. Now some of these in the corner, I'm not going to be able to do it very well, so I'm just going to kind of try my best. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, mine is by no means perfect at all. Okay, but I added that second hump, bigger over each hump, to make that next step appear in there. Okay, again, perfection not necessary. First time most of you have done this, practice. I'll give you a few more seconds to finish up this next step. Okay, step 3, and I'm reading down here at the bottom, and this is the box we're looking at. Color each moon with black, and I created the moons with the second hump. So each moon can be colored in black. So there's my first one, There's my second one, the third one. I'll go ahead and color these spaces as well. Just kind of in between there. Okay, so I've got my moons colored. Notice when I colored in, I kind of fixed some of my mistakes with my lines, right? It's not quite as messy looking because the moons are colored in, and I colored in some of the other spaces as well. Like I went ahead and colored in this tiny little triangle there in that corner. And around here, maybe I can fix this a little bit. Smooth those out. Okay, so step 4 says draw a continuous curved line inside the moons. And it gives me a little example here of what a continuous curved line looks like. So this basically is, we did this before with our bugs, same thing. So I'm going to start inside here and do one round inside. So that line kind of follows those. Now there's not really a whole lot more space for me to do, so I'm able to get one more little diamond in there, but that's really all I need to do to finish up that pattern. Okay, so that is crescent moon. So basically you have a hard outline of moons, and then inside you have these radiating lines that go from the outside to the inside that make up the space inside. Kind of like a spider web. You could make a spider web out of it, I guess, if that's what you wanted to go with. But part of what makes Zentangles and these pattern designs work is their simplicity. They work within the space that they're in. They're not too cluttered. If you make it too cluttered, then it looks kind of a mess. We want these to be kind of an organized pattern design. We don't want them to be too detailed to where they just look messy. Okay, and you can see here's another example. If you did a larger space, yours may look like this one here. And to see this one, the artist actually did another moon shape on the inside to create some contrast. You see these lines are thicker, and two thin lines here, and then a thicker line. Thick line, thin line, thin line, thick line. So make it more interesting there. That's okay to add that kind of thing. But don't go crazy with spider webs, that sort of thing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do another pattern together in another space. So I'm going to turn my Zentangle. Nice thing about the Zentangles is that you can turn them to work on them. All right, so we're going to do this. I'm going to do this print temps Zentangle pattern inside this triangle. Okay, so I see my directions. If you're a visual person, you can follow directions visually. That's good. If you are a reading person, whenever you have these patterns in front of you, you'll be able to read them off of the sheet as well. So print temps. 1. Draw a small spiral like a cinnamon bun or jelly roll. Start with a C shape, then spiral around it to close the end of the spiral. And that's the example right here. So I'll start in the corner. There's one, and it says make more spirals to fill the section. So I'm just going to fill them up. And notice some of the spirals are half or part off of the section, and it's okay to have some on and off. That's a rule that we use in art called breaking that picture plane. So definitely try doing that with some of your spirals. Okay, so lots of my spirals had to go off of the edge there because they didn't quite fit on there. Okay, so I filled up the space, and lots of my spirals, especially where the point is, it comes together, I had to kind of fill that space with spirals that go off of that area. Okay, the next step says add small circles to fill spaces in the section. So I'm filling up the spaces with small circles. So I filled that area with the smaller circles, so you have kind of the basis of the pattern there. And I think the last step says color the background with black. So anything that was not filled with a circle or a spiral, you're going to color that area in black around it. Okay, and this requires some finesse. We have to kind of be careful not to color in. Again, if you color in like here, it's not very clear that I colored around that circle, so I can color over the circle. Not a big deal. Okay, but I want to try to leave some of those circles obvious so that they can be seen through the background that I'm coloring. Okay, so there is my print tense Zentangle, and it looks similar to this pattern and this pattern. I might, if I was doing this again, just kind of self-critique here, I might make my spirals larger, and I would definitely make my dots larger, and maybe more space between my spirals as well to help that out. If I was going to do this again and this pattern again, I would keep those things in mind to space it out a little more and make things a little bigger. Okay, so we're going to have time for about one more pattern. You can work on this pattern if you want to with me, or you can finish up your last one and kind of catch up. The next one we're going to do, I'm going to do this one called Hollabow. Alright, so we can see the end result here. I like these pattern visuals because it gives me a step-by-step and it tells me what I'm supposed to end up with before I start. That always helps me as an artist when I'm doing something like this, so that I know where my end goal is supposed to be, so I can help myself out as I go. So I'm going to start, and I'll do maybe this section here. Start with the line, and then I just cross it with another line that goes behind. Okay, and then another line that goes behind that. Okay, and then I've crossed it with a few more lines around. And it actually asks me to rotate the tile as I do this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Do another line maybe this way. And this is a good one to practice overlapping. Okay, so I just have these lines that overlap each other and kind of end up with something similar to this. So then my next step, my last step, is again coloring in that background. Okay, and then I have one more space. I could do another pattern as I get my worksheets going. So let's see. Maybe I can do. I'll go ahead and do this static one. This one looks pretty easy. Okay, it's just a lightning bolt, zigzag kind of thing in here. It's colored in, and then lines to radiate out. Okay, so there's my last pattern inside there. Really simply and easily done. Okay, so that is all there really is to zentangling. You have more squares that whenever I give you that worksheet out on your table tomorrow that you can practice making more. There's also room on the back that you can practice. So I want you to practice, find your favorite patterns as you go through this, as you look through the packet that's on your table and you find your favorite patterns, practice them. I will give you some pens as I find them that you can use as well. Okay, so this is your introduction to zentangling, and we will practice like this for a couple of days, and then we will get into a project that we will then display everybody's work. Everybody's work will be displayed.